We only have 1 week remaining in the college football season. Then next week is conference championship weekend, and then it's officially bowl season. With only 2 weeks remaining until we get the final playoff rankings, there are still a lot of different scenarios that can go down among 9 different teams. As of this point, I really think there are 9 teams that have a legitimate chance of reaching the college football playoff. Today, we're going to be talking about those 9 teams and what needs to go their way in order for them to reach the college football playoff. We're going to start with Georgia, who's been ranked 1 pretty much all season long. They're undefeated, and they go on the road to take on Georgia Tech this weekend. If I were to guess, that's probably going to be a win. So it all comes down to what happens in the SEC title game against number 8 Alabama. Now, I know a lot of people have different thoughts in regards to Georgia, but I'm of the belief that regardless of what happens in that SEC title game, Georgia should be in. They have a good enough resume this season, as they already have 4 ranked victories. And I think their resume speaks for itself over the last couple of seasons. Now, if they go out and they lose by 20 or 30 to Alabama, maybe we'll be having a different discussion. But if this is a close game like I expect, and Georgia loses by 1 score, I honestly don't see how you can keep them out even though they didn't win this game. They're still going to be 12-1 on the season, and I think we all can agree they're one of the best teams in all of college football. If they beat Alabama, well then it'll be pretty simple, but things could get chaotic if Georgia falls to the tie. Probably the biggest game of the regular season is this weekend, as Ohio State goes on the road to take on number 3 Michigan. This game is going to have massive playoff implications. Whoever wins is going to go to the Big Ten title game, where they're going to take on Iowa, and they're likely going to beat the Hawkeyes. So whoever wins this game and wins in the Big Ten championship, well, they're going to be playoff bound. Now, whoever loses this game, not only are they dropping their first game of the season, they're also not going to be able to play in that Big Ten title game, and that's probably going to be really difficult to help them reach the playoff. Now, I do think there are a bunch of crazy scenarios where both Ohio State and Michigan could reach the college football playoff, but again, that's asking for a lot of other teams to lose. I definitely think it's possible, but whoever wins this weekend is almost guaranteeing a spot in the college football playoff. So for Ohio State and for Michigan, you just got to win this weekend, and I think you'll be okay. But things are going to get a little bit interesting, because what happens if either Ohio State or Michigan lose to Iowa in the Big Ten title game? Well, if that's the case, are you going to have the loser of that game reach the college football playoff? Or would you give the edge to the other team that didn't quite make it? That, I think, is a scenario where things could get really messy. Let's look at Washington now, as they survived a near upset this past weekend as they knocked off number 11 Oregon State by 2 points. They host Washington State in the Apple Cup this weekend. I expect the Huskies to win, and they're going to then head to the Pac-12 title game, where they're most likely going to be facing Oregon. And it's going to be a rematch of their game earlier in the season when they had a 3-point victory. If Washington wins this weekend and they take down the Ducks in the Pac-12 title game, I don't see any way you can keep them out of the college football playoff. They seem like they'd be a guarantee to be one of the 4 teams. But if Washington loses this weekend, or if they lose to Oregon in that Pac-12 title game, the Huskies are officially eliminated. We'll stay in the Pac-12 and talk about Oregon. They have a difficult matchup this weekend as they take on a top 15 team in Oregon State. Luckily for the Ducks, they do get this game at home, but it shouldn't be an easy one by any means. As we've seen this season, and as we saw last week, Oregon State is a really good opponent. So this is going to be a tough victory for the Ducks. If they're able to get by Oregon State, well, they'll be taking on Washington in the Pac-12 title game in a rematch. Washington is the only team that's taken down the Ducks this season, so this would be a huge game for Oregon. If they're able to get revenge and take down Washington, they're going to be 12-1, and they're going to be Pac-12 champs. And if that's the case, I think Oregon should be a guarantee to reach the college football playoff. If you guys have been watching my top 25 videos over the last couple of weeks, you would know that I'm very high on this Oregon team, and I constantly have them inside my top 4. So if they pick up 2 more ranked victories, then the Ducks should be a no-brainer. I just did a video on this yesterday, so if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on Florida State, you guys can go check that out. But Florida State goes on the road to take on Florida this weekend. Then they play Louisville in the ACC title game. If the Seminoles are able to win out, they're going to finish the season 13-0, and they're going to be ACC champions. And if that's the case, they're likely going to be in. But like I talked about in the video, what happens if Florida State really struggles against Florida and really struggles against Louisville? Sure, they might pick up 2 victories, but if each win is close, are they really going to get in over a potential Pac-12 champion in Oregon or one of the other teams on today's list? I'm not entirely certain. Now, if Florida State loses either game, they're officially going to be done. So win out and just hope that there's not a lot of chaos surrounding you. Texas is still alive, and they wrap up the season against Texas Tech at home this weekend. They should win that game, and they're going to finish the regular season 11-1. If they win this weekend, they'll play in the Big 12 title game. We still don't know who they're going to play yet, as it could be Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, or even Kansas State. But whoever they play, they're probably going to be favored. And if they win both those games, they're going to finish the season with 12 wins, and they'll be Big 12 champions. Now, Texas is in an interesting position because they have a number of teams they're going to have to jump over if they want to reach the playoff. They still have to worry about Florida State in front of them and whoever wins the Pac-12. I think Texas is still alive in the playoff hunt, but they're probably going to have Florida State lose, and they're probably going to have either Oregon or Washington lose this weekend, and then have that other team lose in the Pac-12 title game. So Texas's road isn't as easy as some of these other teams on this list. Alabama has a pretty easy one. If they beat Auburn this weekend and then beat Georgia in the SEC title game, they're going to be in, no questions asked. At that point, their only loss on the season would be to Texas, who's currently fighting for a playoff spot, and they'd be the SEC champion who just knocked off the #1 team in the country. So for Alabama, again, it's really easy. If you lose, you're out. If you win out, you're in. The final team in today's video are the Louisville Cardinals. Somehow, some way, they're still alive as they're 10-1 on the season. They gotta face Kentucky this weekend, and that should be kind of a difficult matchup. Then they gotta play Florida State in the ACC title game. That's where things are gonna get really interesting. If Louisville's able to win out and they take down Florida State in the ACC title game, well, they're gonna be conference champions and they're gonna be 12-1 on the season. But they're going to have a lot of different things go their way to climb all the way inside the top 4. I mean, I'm talking about Alabama losing to Georgia. I'm talking about either Ohio State or Michigan losing in the Big 10 title game. We got to have Texas lose in the Big 12 title game. We got to have either Oregon or Washington lose this weekend, and then have the other team lose in the Pac-12 title game. Again, they got to do all that, and then they still got to beat Florida State in the ACC title game. So for the sake of this video, their chances aren't 0, but out of all the teams we talked about in today's video, Louisville definitely has the longest shot of reaching the playoff. So those are the 9 teams who are still realistically in the college football playoff hunt. I'm going to have a video tomorrow talking about all the different scenarios that can happen, so make sure to stay tuned for that. With 2 weeks left in the college football season, which 4 teams do you think are going to be the ones left standing that reach the college football playoff at the end of the year? Whoever they are and whatever scenario you think happens, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.